There.
Hello, everybody. I'm Preston Poulter. I publish comic books under my own imprint, which is Pocket Jacks Comics. And every Wednesday evening here on my channel, I get together a group of myself and other people who are interested in the writing craft, and we present pages and give our feedback. So let's go around, and we have a new guest with us. We have Darth Daddy Lunga, who has his own YouTube channel. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi everyone, thank you for having me here, Preston. As far as YouTube goes, I just have a small Star Wars centric kind of channel. It also goes into other fantasy and sci-fi as well, and it's about fandom and Star Wars. It's called the Grey Council, so that hence the name is just what I use for my YouTube channel. I'm also an author. I published my first fantasy novel, Souls of Magic's Dawn. I just released on Amazon in February, and I had a Kickstarter in November that raised a little over $4,000 for that.
So my main some sound. I'm not to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing something else playing. Audio.
I don't hear. I do not hear anything else. So it's literally just you.
Okay, good. Great. But it sounds like it's coming from somebody else's speaker.
Yeah, I hear nothing else.
Nobody else hears anything else?
I don't hear anything else.
No.
All right, good.
All right.
I guess that's a good thing.
Were you saying something?
Yeah. So my like I said, I published my first fantasy novel back in February. Yeah, I have it over here. Souls of Magic's Dawn. My author name is G.A. Lungaro. That's where the Lunga comes from. And I'm a longtime comics fan. Been reading comics obviously since I was a child. So I've always wanted to get into comics, and I had this steampunk treatment that I've been working on for a little while. So that's me.
All right. Thomas, tell everybody a bit about yourself.
I've been writing comics as a hobby for a bunch of years, and ever since me and my brother were kids, we would just they had the school project when you're 8 years old, and it's like, here, write a comic, and it's like, we'll print a little book out for you, and you can draw it in. And ever since then, it was like, oh man, this is awesome, and just been trying to do it since then. So and as far as writing, it's been it's been a long history of like a weird experimental phases and being like, what about this? And then doing a couple novels, and then writing a bunch of comics, but mainly for myself. So it's a weird sort of connection to comics. But it's gone back for like many decades, at least on my end.
Cool. And all right. And Thomas's brother, whose name sometimes
patriarchal.
Usually patriarchal and nappy. But usually Doug just calls me Pat.
Pat. Okay.
I'm used to that.
All right. And tell the audience a bit about yourself.
Yes, it's the same background as my brother. We, I remember we used to write. What happened? We used to write way back in the day when we were like, I remember he wrote this entire sequence. I don't know if I should go into it. He wrote this thing about going to school, waiting for the school bus when we were like 12 or 13. Having to trudge.
Oh yeah, no, that's when I tried. That's when I was like, I'm going to write my autobiography at 15, and it was just like it was really goofy, but it was also just something I wrote for myself in a notepad paper. And it was like I had all these ideas of like, am I going to be a writer? Let me try it, and then sort of phasing it out and being like, no, never mind. And then 10 years pass. Or it was very weird. Or no, it was like 5 years, and then all of a sudden I knew somebody who could draw, and I was like, "Hey, here's some ideas for comics," and they drew like a few of them, and I was like, "Am I a comics maker now?" And it's very bizarre. It's definitely a history that nobody else, like possibly in the history of any comics or creation medium, has ever had, because it was very very nebulous, and it was something I always questioned about myself about going back and forth in it. And I guess in a way, it's like it took me 15 years to really realize what aspect of writing I liked the most, and it turned out to be comics, like, exclusively. Because after I tried all these other variations, I was like, I don't like these nearly as much as I like writing comics.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing, is it's pretty easy to explain the the justification behind it is like, I don't like reading books.
Yeah,
Books.
all those words and crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand how people make it through novels.
Yeah, words and words and words. I think that people only
stab the author in the heart over here.
it's people only get through novels by force. It's like they're stuck on an airplane. And it's like, well, I can't do anything else. At least in the days before every airplane seat had a screen on the back of them.
Exactly.
Just watch a movie instead now.
So that you could watch movies.
Yes,
But yeah,
instead of reading books.
We actually.
So here's
Hold
where
on. Jen, visiting from the Dallas Film Study. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Oh, I was about to ask a question.
Oh.
I already told them about myself.
That was before we were on there.
Oh. Okay.
There you go.
And
Now we're live.
I'm Jen. I'm a friend of Preston's. I do happen to be involved with Dallas Film and the Dallas Film Festival. I am also an instructor in a graduate program course called Design Leadership at Georgetown University. And I am here listening and participating because I think that what you all are doing actually is straight up in the wheelhouse of design leadership, the definition for the course that I teach, which now that we're on air, I'll just repeat again.
Okay.
I literally took the two words that are the title of the course: design, meaning solutions that you develop based on parameters that you're given. And leadership is defined as the stake that you put in the ground. So put those things together, solutions that you develop, and the stake in the ground that you put for those solutions. So now can I ask my question?
Yes.
Okay. So you all are talking about your hatred of novels.
Not me.
Not Darth Daddy.
It's not so much a hatred of
it
novels.
really is. The last novel I read was People's Republic, and before that, it was basically just all nonfiction.
I know you read the sequels to that too, and it was that was almost more as a goof. But yeah, it was.
The last novel I actually read was basically any Michael Crichton from the '90s. Disclosure, I think, was actually the last book I ever read.
I think I read Airframe. Airframe was the last one of his that I read.
Okay, well, I am totally not going to judge you based on your reading of Michael Crichton, but even though I sort of just did, but anyway, but I do want to ask this question, and this is why I've asked to sort of sit in on this, is you all are talking about your hatred of long form storytelling, essentially. And what I am interested in is the fact that you are all, in some sense, long form storytellers. Your books are not one-offs. Your novel, Lunga, is a one-off. It exists in a closed loop. No?
It's the first novel in the series.
Great. Okay.
Vicky loves novels.
Vicky loves novels. Right on, Vickyverse. And I totally love your picture. Okay. But
she works at a pet daycare.
I love it even more. I love it even more. Okay. But I'm not trying to contradict you. I'm not what you're talking about. I'm not trying to stir anything up, but I am I wonder if you guys understand that while Michael Crichton or whatever long form nonfiction or fiction novel you're reading might be just words and words and words and not very interesting and certain.
Dune, actually, I think it was actually Dune was the last one, and that especially killed.
That'll kill novel reading for a lot of people.
It's a great example.
It is a bunch of pages to get through.
I mean, it's a classic.
The weakness of the medium is inherent in having to read that thing. First off, because there's a glossary.
Right. But I could counter that with you all are creating universes where there are many characters, there are many storylines, there's a lot of stuff happening. So while Dune comes with a glossary and yours doesn't come with a literal glossary, your readers, your audiences are investing themselves in your universe in the same way that they've invested themselves in Dune, and are willing to, you know, invest in a glossary of, you could say, gobbledygook.
Yeah, I would hope that I won't have to stop them from being able to pay attention to my story in the same way that I do. I mean, we're not here to review Dune.
No,
But-
not at all. I'm not suggesting that. But
Not yet. Anyways,
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
we'll get to Dune someday, maybe.
And by the way, Dune is like one of my all-time favorite sci-fi series.
Right.
So
I don't think
But
I got like 20 pages in personally.
I read the whole thing.
I've read like the first 2 chapters of Dune 4 times.
You ever watch Jodorowsky's Dune?
I think Jen is trying to get to the end of her question.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Good luck. Good luck.
Is, do you all not, do you absolutely discount yourselves as the same kind of writers as novelists?
I will let them all go first because I am a novelist, so I will let everyone else go
You're
first.
the outlier.
I wrote.
Considered that. Yeah, I basically figured it was going to be my only option, but my brother actually suggested, comic books as a potential alternative
to
form. And then I
to
remembered, oh, that's right. We used to actually write and draw our own comics when we were 12.
As kids, we would like make goof comics, but yeah, we would like fill notebooks of it, and that's very low end, but that was I still consider that a very bare bones equivalent of still the process, a good, in a way, a necessary start. As far as novels, I've written 2, and it really. I was still satisfied with them ultimately, but what it really taught me was that how much more I prefer to write a comic book, how I would prefer the story I'm writing
and read
to be seen.
Not just write, but read.
Yeah, I would, at least for my stories specifically. Other people who prefer to write, just prose, they have that avenue. But when I was writing it and when I finished. And both of them were stories I thought of as comics first. And it was like, I can write this as a novel myself without any artist. And I finished both of them. And as satisfied as I was with both stories, I was like, this still, especially for me, would be better as a comic because because all the ways I wanted to tell the story were almost entirely visually, sometimes, without any dialogue or exposition. I found that's how I really preferred it and how I really enjoyed wanting to tell the story. And every time I have made comics, I've enjoyed, finishing them so much more than writing a novel. So, I mean, that's just me. So for anyone else, I can't speak for anyone else, can't look into their souls, but, on my end, I'm like, yeah, I would definitely prefer to read or to write and make comics. As far as reading, I don't hate novels. It's just that I most of the stuff I read is in fact, if anything, I read more than ever before. But all of it is sort of the real life daily occurrence stuff. Either on the internet or just news or nonfiction.
Yeah,
stuff.
that's the thing is I probably spent, especially from like 2000, once I really got into the internet, I probably spent about 6 hours a day, every single day on average reading. But it was blogs and stuff and various web pages. A lot of people are familiar with like the deep dives into Wikipedia, stuff like that.
Yeah, going down the rabbit hole.
So then, because I don't want this to dominate the conversation, you all are here to read your writing and get feedback. But I just want to throw out the idea that you all, as in a design leadership context, you actually are thinking in much bigger, broader ways because you are creating universes a universe in the same way that a novel might be a universe. And what I'm interested in, because there's less words, there's more visuals, it all comes together in a really epic way. I am interested in listening to you talk about your writing and how you're making decisions about the story and the stake in the ground that you're putting for why this world is this way.
I think we're all here also probably big fans in particular of speculative fiction, sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I guess I can interject a little bit. The thing for me, I mean, as a longtime comic reader, and I started out with you guys too, as I was a kid, 4th, 5th grade, me and my best friend, we were taking piece of notebook, putting squares in it, and we drew this guy called the Mystery Guy, and we made, our comic books, and we did that forever, and then I wish I was looking for it earlier, but I don't have it. And when I was 13, I made basically a Metroid fan fiction, and I made a cover on it and drew the cover, and it was actually like my little mini novel that I wrote up. But being a novelist and enjoying comic books and wanting to write comic books, I understand the difference between, as far as consumption goes, that some people are visual and some people, can use your imagination when reading, and there's nothing wrong with being either. So it's just a different form of media. Now, when you guys were talking about reading, like you say, you're reading blogs and stuff like that. There's a difference between reading as an act and reading as far as your imagination. When you're taking it as an information dump just to get information, you're getting information or learning or educating yourself on things. Whereas if you're reading fiction, you're using your imagination and the words that the author puts down to build that in your mind to see how it looks. What I love about writing the most, more than anything, which is what really hurt me about Rian Johnson when he came out with his interview after recently, is he hates world building. And to me, world building is one of the most crucial things any writer can do, comic or
especially for speculative fiction, science fiction.
Right. I mean, I started writing my book and I literally stopped at the first chapter. I'm like, I need to draw a map. I can't write this book unless I draw a map. I need to know this world. I need to see what it looks like. So as far as translating now into comics or in writing comics, for me, at least, from writing, 105,000 page novel and writing every word is the narrative and the exposition. Now I can write a 1 or 2 sentence blurb to the artist for what I want to show in this panel for each thing. So it makes things a little bit different, in that transition, but we're still world building. No matter how you look at it, it's more intensive as the writing and a book, but when you do a comic, it maybe it's less intensive, but there's also a partnership with the artist, unless you're an artist/writer.
Yeah, sort of like one of the most popular series is the Game of Thrones, and plenty of world building in that, just solidly from the novels, and that works. And I think it really depends on the writer themselves where their strengths lie, because the strength can lie in telling, building their world, telling the story through, the visuals and all that, doing that just straight up through prose if they have that strength. But and you can build a really good atmosphere, like Stephen King can really build the atmosphere and tension just through the words. And I've seen a lot of good stories. What is funny? Like in my teenage years, I remember reading Summer of Night, and just the atmosphere in that, of 1950s, 1960s sort of young teenagers going through a very Stephen King-ish kind of adventure, and just the atmosphere built from that, just in text, in words alone, is really impressive. But again, that all depends on the specific strength of the writer, and building an atmosphere in a comic can be its own, separate strength that then relies though on an artist's ability to be able to translate that too. And that's where things can get more difficult and messy, because you have to be able to work with an artist that can do that, and being able to just be the writer and build that atmosphere just in a novel is a greater strength, and I think more important and underappreciated. As
that's the scary part. Honestly, going to comics, that's the scariest part for me, because it's like, is the artist going? Is my description or talking with them going to? What I see in my head is that what they're going to be able to see.
Yeah,
by
will
my
will it
description, you know?
translate? Yeah,
Yeah.
will your ideas
will
translate
translate
through
to
the
the-
artist properly enough? That can be scary. Yeah, because I've had that problem where, like in my script, it's like, oh, maybe it doesn't come across well enough, or with the artist, or maybe if it came across in a different way through the artist, that I still was like, oh, I still like that. It wasn't exactly what I was thinking, but
Yeah.
now
Oh, yeah,
it's a
that's
new point of view on it that I still like.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you, because I want you guys to get to the real point of why you're here. But thanks for letting me interview you for a while. And believe it or not, there's going to be some graduate students who are going to be learning about how design leadership can be applicable to development of comic books.
That is cool. Yeah. Thank you. Also, I like talking about sort of the theory craft of the actual writing too, to some aspect, because sometimes that's more fun than the actual writing.
And Tony, did you introduce yourself?
Oh, I don't think I did. No.
It was a brief 2-line introduction.
Yeah.
All right. My name is Tony S., short for Tony Sostarsic. I shorten it to S because nobody can pronounce Sostarsic first try. I've been going to a writers group for about 10 years, and I've been mostly writing short stories and attempted novels up until the last couple of years, where I decided to start writing comics. I have done short comics before, some web comics. The first comic I ever did was when I was 15, and there are 2 comics on. I have a webtoon.com account, so there are 2 comics on there that you can check out.
Awesome.
Great.
All right. All right. So we got Darth is presenting pages, and Tony's presenting pages. And
these are the first in comic format pages. Not the first things I've written, but first in the comic. And Peyton gave me that link for Writer's Duet, which is actually pretty cool.
Yeah. By the way, I have a discount code. I guess I'll go ahead and add it. To the, but yeah, I think
you should do that. Yeah.
PJC20 will give you 20% off of Writer's Duet subscription. If that doesn't work, come back and email me. I have to look it up.
Yeah, it worked when I put it in. I just did it for 1 month right now, and then I'll see what goes, and then I might just get it for the year.
Okay.
But yeah.
So fantastic. Yeah, because for me, like, there's simply not software out there that writes in comic writing format. And Writer Duet is really slick in that regards, and you can, with me, I'm working with my team, and they're all over the place. I got my penciler in the Philippines. I got my colorist out in Los Angeles. I got my inker in India, who's currently under quarantine. So, like, trying to coordinate these people is made a lot easier if I can just share a link and everyone's looking at the same script in real time, as opposed to what version are you looking at, kind of thing. So,
and you can, and I noticed you can update it live too. So anytime you make a change, that same link is going to show whatever you just updated with.
Right.
And there's an option in there for autosave too, so it just keeps saving everything you do.
Whenever you're working, whenever you're talking about screenplays, Final Draft is obviously like the big name in that software. It's what everyone uses out in Los Angeles. Like, they won't even really talk about. I mean, like, it is basically how you can submit a screenplay to people. Is you just send them the Final Draft formatted file, kind of thing. But the thing with working with any of those, essentially desktop apps, is that when you're trying to coordinate a story, you'll export to PDF, you'll email it to somebody, and particularly with a screenplay or whatever, they're not going to read it right away. And then meanwhile, you're talking with other people, you're soliciting feedback, you're getting all these other notes, you go and you make your change to it. And then, like, 2 or 3 weeks later, the guy you sent the thing to will be like, oh, I read your script, but they didn't read the current script. They read the 3 weeks ago script. So I find Writer Duet really, really helpful in that.
It's a nice cloud. It's like inherently cloud based, because it's just, you work off the website, so it's just that link you send to anyone, and it's your most current work right there.
Yeah. And I don't know if Webtoon is any good, but
do you want my opinion on it? Because I'm more. they were kind of crappy for a little bit because they didn't allow PNG files, and because I do my style in a more cartoony, like not a lot of colors art style, so I like it looks better in PNG. But and also I was choosing between that or Tapas, and Tapas has this weird clause where it's like, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. Okay. Let's just look at this.
Well, I heard some stuff about Tapas where it has weird copyright issues.
Right, that's what I was getting to. That they own, like, if you get like the premium like service, then they own like 30% of your IP.
Yeah,
which whatever the hell that means.
Forever, apparently, or some weird stuff like that.
No, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just for uploading your trying to host your comic somewhere, and it's like, yeah, we own part of this now forever. No. And it's like, I don't want that.
No, that's not how IP works, buddy.
Yeah, it shouldn't. Yeah, it certainly shouldn't. And they're like, oh no, but you made the agreement, you signed this contract with us to host it, and it's like that shouldn't even be how it works. But
that sounds like the thing Jim Go did when he wrote an article for what was it? It
was something by Breitbart. I think it was for Breitbart. The contract said it would be owned in perpetuity across the known universe. Wow. That was actually in the contract.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was
you have to found an unknown universe to get out of that contract.
Yeah, and even then you can't take it, I guess, because it belongs to whatever universe Breitbart publishes in.
But I found I may need to switch browsers to share this, and I'm the one hosting. Is it okay if I log out for like a few seconds, or does
you can leave the studio and it'll still be running as long as you don't click the end broadcast button? We're fine.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, wow. I mean, I've never seen it before. I wouldn't know what happens.
It's going to be
I use StreamYard to host my channel too, so I know. Okay. He can leave. We just can't. He just has to be here if we're going to share screens and stuff. But
it does say it's still live. Okay,
yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, it only shuts off if you hit end broadcast. He can leave the studio and come right back in again.
Was he going to share the PDF or something? I don't know.
I think so. He said he was going to share. I think he said he was going to share a video.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? That's one thing about sharing videos that can be messy, because I've never been able to get it to share the audio properly, no matter what browser I use.
There's a box. You got to hit share audio. You got to check a box that share audio.
It's
really funky. In the bottom, when you share it on StreamYard, at the very bottom left corner, there's a little checkbox that says share audio. You got to check that first.
Vickyverse says we could talk about Preston now. No, first time I tried it was on Firefox, which is like Firefox doesn't let you share audio at all. So I tried it on Chrome. I was like, let me try it on Chrome. And Chrome, actually, I didn't see any option to share audio at all. And maybe I didn't see the box this was last year though.
So I haven't. Yeah, I've only been using it for the last 3 months, so I don't know about last year. Maybe it wasn't available last year.
Yeah, I have no idea. Although, I mean, it used to say like Chrome will share the audio, and then it was like, okay, how do I do it? And I was looking around and trying to share a video, and it's just like, nah, I don't see anything, and no one could hear anything. So I was like,
Gotcha. Well, it's definitely there now. I know since I've been using it in the last 3 months or so, it's there.
That's good.
And Chrome is the preferred browser for it.
Or I think if you have Brave,
Brave, not Chrome, Brave.
I actually just started using Brave, and it's pretty great.
Because it's just
never
Chrome.
heard of it.
It's just Chrome, but they don't track you. They don't
track you.
They cut out. It has a built-in ad blocker, and it cuts out all the Google tracking things.
So isn't that the same thing as just using the ad blocker extension and going incognito?
Yeah, kind of. Well,
I don't think incognito actually fucking does what it advertises.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. I am not sure.
It's Google. So
the host is back, guys. The host
is back. Strangely, I'm back in the. I'm running Linux right now, and it's kind of weird. So
that's too bad.
I'm back in like the same browser. Because whenever I click share screen, it's like the browser you're in. I'm like, oh, piss off. So we have paid. I was reading a comic book for a company that I've been talking about in terms of White Lily, and in the course of the discussion, like they're particularly interested in like the movie and TV rights, and this is a book that they did a couple of years ago, back when I first started talking to them, and it's been made into a episode of Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories, which has been out again. I don't know if you remember that. That was a show back in the 80s.
I was actually talking about that not long ago. So I was sitting there watching TV with my girlfriend. I was looking at my phone, and the music came up. I'm like, I know this song. I remember this show.
Yeah.
I watched one episode of that. I saw one episode. It was a bomber crew in World War II.
That's the one I saw.
Yeah, I think that's the same episode.
Their landing gear was broken,
right?
And they're trying to do all this stuff. The ball turret gunner in the belly of the it's like a B-29 or something.
Yeah, he makes a drawing of like cartoon wheels on the plane.
You're spoiling the ending. You're spoiling
the ending, but at the end,
it's the worst ending ever.
But it's
also
horrendous.
The entire build up to that is a great episode. Because like it's this whole thing about how do we get this guy out of here? They're trying to feed a parachute through the broken metal.
Yeah, it's sort of like borderline Apollo 13. Apollo 13, delightful movie, of course. But yeah, that's where they're actually using like reality and stuff to be like, okay, here's a big box of stuff. How do we turn this into like an air filter, for the CO2 scrubber or whatever?
I love that one.
That's great.
Apollo 13 is a great movie.
I mean, I still have weirdly fond memories, but I haven't seen that since I was a kid. The actual Amazing Stories thing. That was like a Spielberg sort of attempt to be like a more lighthearted Twilight Zone-ish.
Yeah, that's what happens at the end of it. Is the guy is an animator or something. He's an artist, and he draws a picture of the landing wheel, and then it becomes a cartoon landing wheel on the plane, and they land safely.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Like, what the hell? I thought this was a true story up until this point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. If you were watching it expecting a true story, you're definitely going to be disappointed by the ending. But that's the thing; it's supposed to be fantastical. I mean, that's what Spielberg was going for.
It was great up until then, though.
And the pages. So this has been made into a episode, a TV episode, and it doesn't read like a comic book. Like you can tell that the guy is a TV writer.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just reads like a TV plot kind of thing, and so it kind of has a different take. And I ended up kind of in a discussion with it, so I thought it might be interesting if we go through those. So we got that, and then we got Tony's pages, and we got Lunga's pages. Who wishes to go first?
I have no idea.
Thomas, what do you want to hear first?
Well, since Lunga's the new guest, I would say we would go with his stuff first.
All right.
Beat me up.
So who wants to so since the browser won't let me, who wants to share screen so that we can page through?
I could do it.
Okay.
Let's see. Share screen application window. Here we go. PDF.
I'm going to open Discord.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about sound for this one.
And
we are the sound.
Yeah, it turned out I found out because it was weird. It was broadcasting the audio of my game that I was in. I was in Warframe. It was broadcasting it back to me, but the audio was completely at zero.
Is another good reason not to play.
Yeah, so I bailed out of the game, and it turned out it was somebody else's microphone.
Oh, yeah. That's not good.
But the volume was still all the way at zero. So I don't know how they did that.
This shows up pretty decently.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I thought I would have to zoom in more, but I don't.
Yeah, so this is my first thing, and the first 10 pages, since it's the very beginning, there's dialogue, but it starts out mostly with captions and stuff like that to set up the feel, I guess you could say.
Okay. And all right, so typically what we do is you assign parts. Obviously, you're going to need a narrator, and then I don't know who the characters are, but presumably
in this one, there's in these 10 pages, there's 3 characters with voice lines, and then there's like crewmen.
Okay.
Just shouting things. So I guess 4.
Okay. 4. Well,
Plus
we have your actors. We have Jennifer, Thomas, Pat, Tony, and me. You're the director. Hand out the parts.
There's Archer. Preston, you can be Archer.
I'm Archer. Very well.
Sure. Jen, she can be narrator.
Great.
Tony, you can do Kali.
Okay.
Thomas, I guess you can do Dumont.
Okay. Who's doing the captions? Is that part of the narration then?
That's well, actually, the caption are pretty much all Archer's thoughts.
Okay. So I will read those. It's good you asked that, because otherwise Jen was going to do.
Yeah.
All right. Jen, go ahead and lead us off.
Okay, panel 1, splash, daytime. Aerial view of the airship, HMS Ninurta. A Victorian-style wooden ship, except flying in the sky. Captain Archer Dantes stands on the bow, holding onto a rigging rope, looking off into the distance.
How long has it been? A week, a month, years? I am quite sure it is sometime between a week and a month. Tragedy is a demon in this way, destroying any semblance of reason and logic. All I know is one day I held the rank of commander of the HMS Ninurta under Captain Emery. The next, the entire crew and my wife were dead in an instant. Page 2.
Panel 1, full body shot of Captain Archer Dantes looking off into the clouds, standing on the bow.
I'm a fugitive, Commander Archer Dantes, now rogue captain, wanted for treason and murder aboard a royal airship. However, I am innocent, well, except for Kitsu. I killed her, my wife, and that act led to this inexplicable tragedy.
Panel 2, close-up of Archer Dante's face. His eyes are closed and head tilted downward.
All right, hold on.
Oh boy. Yeah, but
Oh, they're back.
it's crackling.
Can you guys hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We hear you, Jen.
Yeah, I heard a big pause, and then I heard the internet, like on your end, just start crackling a
okay.
bunch.
Yeah, Preston looks frozen.
Yeah.
For some reason my window is frozen here.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back to panel 2. Close-up of Archer Dante's face.
Well, the problem is it's like the screen's frozen. I'm gonna reboot.
Yeah.
And I'll be right back.
Okay. I'll take a pause for a minute.
And I'm gonna reboot it in Windows this time.
The drama was getting thick. What
Yeah.
the heck?
That's how the
getting to
internet.
best part.
Yeah, exactly. That's how the internet always is. Like,
Yeah.
the best part. Oh, it's crashed.
There's actually a lot of problems going on right now. Though, just bandwidth is being stretched so thin because everybody's at home.
Oh yeah, it's prime
Yeah.
time. That's right. I remember when that used to be a huge problem with like
Yeah.
older cable connections and stuff.
AOL.
Dial-up too. Yeah, AOL. Yeah.
Dial-up.
I remember AOL.
AOL hell.
Yep.
With a 15 or not 15,
56K modem.
yeah, the 56K modem that would still only get, it would get like the 33K tops. It was like, how come I'm not getting 56K?
It was really more like 5K per second.
Yeah, and well, for downloads, yeah, you're
Just
max-
imagine going on
Yeah.
Napster with only 5K per second, but we still did it.
It was,
How
and
about
then,
this? Click on a picture, go have dinner, and come back for it to be loaded.
yeah, exactly.
But then again, back then everything was so low res.
I remember on YouTube there is a documentary. It's like 5 hours long called BBS, the documentary, and it's about these people who used to dial in their phones from their computers. The old 80s computer, like early 80s computers, would physically call over a phone line to a bulletin board system. And it's funny because you have all these people. It's really a great documentary because it's funny in these ways where people are like, I had a 4600 baud modem, and the text would just fly across the screen because all it was
It was faster than you can read it.
Yeah, and then I upgraded to 14.4K, and I was the king of the entire city. Like, just these people bragging, but in like an ironic, tongue-in-cheek way about like 20 years ago on these computers that they had. And it's like, I had two choices: I could buy a car or a new like TRS 80 or something. I don't think TRS 80s were that expensive, but they're talking about like building from kits and stuff. And it's funny how now everything in a way has gone back to either kits or laptops, but just these, the amount of money that computers cost back then is like, I could buy, it wouldn't be a good car, but I could buy a car, but instead I bought a computer and I immediately dial up to the BBS because like talking to other people over text on a screen was such a novelty. Like in the 80s, it was incredible. It was like a militarized technology and stuff. It's great. If anyone has like 5 hours to burn, you don't have to watch it necessarily.
One of my favorite parts of it actually is when they're showing like people doing the whatever ASCII art, like colored text, and they're making these giant paintings. Basically, it's the most impermanent form of art, but it's just these masterworks, and it's like this is amazing. Yeah, and they just did that for fun. They did it because they were bored.
They show some of them in the documentary that are just like really multicolored, and it's just like keyboard letters and stuff to make pictures, and then
repainting Monet's garden.
Yeah, because
like, holy shit.
Yeah, because you couldn't actually send an image file, or at least it was such a waste of bandwidth to do it at that point. It's like you're talking about like a good 10K of data. I mean, that's like, thousands and thousands of words. Okay, I think Preston's back.
He's back.
I'm running Windows this time.
There you go.
Oh,
like the rest of the world.
Yes,
like the rest of the world. Yeah, I was sick of being avant-garde.
You guys, this writer's room is so hot. We melted the computer down.
Yeah, so good. Too pure for this world.
Yeah.
Too pure, perfect cinnamon roll.
Yes. Okay. Panel 2 was.
Hold on.
Page 2.
The script I had downloaded was
it was only for Linux.
Yeah, so now I have to re-download it for Windows.
Install Linux, idiot! Oh, you already did.
It was under that little penguin. Now you gotta
exactly
bring it back up. Yeah, I built the computer I'm using right now. I built when I started streaming, and I was considering Linux, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even messing with this.
Yeah,
I'm going to be streaming. I don't want to know if some software is not compatible, or I got to download a trillion drivers to figure it out. I'm like, I'm just going Windows. Forget it.
Yeah, I mean, strangely enough, like the really hard part, I would think would be easy. When that's StreamYards really only works with Google Chrome,
right?
And the Linux version of Google Chrome doesn't like it or whatever.
Yeah, because it's not really Chrome. It's Chrome Lite, if you will.
Just a mess. It's a big mess. Yeah, that's what I'm like. When I think about all the video games I have, that probably wouldn't even work with Linux.
Yep.
I'm not going to bother.
It's free.
Even
it's free.
if I hate Windows.
Yeah, as much as I hate Windows and Microsoft, in fact, it's been more irritating lately. It's just like, why do can we just make Windows obsolete?
Yeah, Windows is like getting worse.
I would love to. And as I was saying, like the problem for me is typically I only go to Windows as like a last resort, like I just did. Like damn it, let me so like boom, let me put it up in Windows. And as I was joking with Jen, and Windows is like she's like a fickle bitch mistress. She's like, oh, you're back.
Yeah.
Well, I need to run my updates.
Me because I'm compatible with everything you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. But I love it. Like, I need you now. She's like, I'm going to run my updates. Don't bother me for the next 2 minutes. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh, no. Linux didn't want you to go to that place. Well, you can go there with me.
Exactly. And now I'm firing up Discord. Discord's like, hold on, I have 5 updates. I'm like, God damn it.
The story's really good so far, though.
I know. One of the things I was curious about on page 1 is he standing on like a regular ship, like a sea ship, or is this like an airship?
I did. Here's the thing.
An airship.
It's an airship. Like when I collab with an artist, I'm going to give them more in depth ideas of what it looks like. But if you know anything about the steampunk aesthetic, they're airships, but they literally look like Victorian sea ships. Okay,
big wooden hull.
Yeah, galleons.
Yes, right. Right. But they're in the sky, and I have a blurb in here where like the sails, instead of canvas sails, they're actually solar sails that helps get power to ship. Also, it's run with steam work, clockwork, and there's a fuel source called Numenon, and it's this green stuff. And the way I vision it, like you remember in the Matrix, you know how they had those discs at the bottom, the glowy discs. It's like green. Right, it's like a green glowy discs on the sides of the hull that keep it afloat.
This also sounds kind of like Treasure Planet.
Actually, if you think about the ship in the cartoon Treasure Planet, it's similar to that. That's how
the sails are like glowing gold fabric.
Yeah. It also reminds me though is like the airships from the Final Fantasy games, the early ones, like 2.
I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, so yes.
Yeah, I always loved the airship, especially in 3 where you could go below decks.
Two and 3, they're basically like that, except it's helicopter blades.
And by 2 and 3, we mean United States 2 and 3. The only ones
2 and 3,
right.
U.S. Yes,
right.
3 is the one with the Moogle on the cart.
Yes.
No confusion. Is the one with the Moogle on the cart.
No such thing as 4 or 6. They
especially no such thing as 5.
Yes, 5 really never happened.
Even though I'm old enough for all of those, none of my attraction wasn't really grabbed until 7. That's when I started getting into Final Fantasy.
I mean, 7 was the big jump up, especially in budget and like FMVs and all that. But 6 is actually, oh wait, did I say 6? I meant.
I meant.
All right, everybody, I'm back. Let's do this. Okay.
All
right. We're gonna restart here on panel 2. Narrator.
One more time. Close-up of Archer Dante's face. His eyes are closed and head tilted downward.
One thing I am certain of, I have always wanted to fly among the clouds.
Panel 3. Outdoors, a Japanese home, manicured garden with cherry blossoms, koi pond, lawn statues.
I was the only child of a French clockwork smith working from the British Empire and a Japanese mother. This was when relations between the two nations were peaceful. Page 3.
Panel 1. In the garden, a young Archer Dantes, around 5, looks wide-eyed up at the sky, pointing, his father kneeling beside him, his mother standing behind him.
From the first time I saw an airship flying above our home outside of Tokyo, I was entranced.
Panel 2, close-up of Etienne's face, smiling at his son's wonderment.
My father's work as a clockwork smith was critical to the mechanics that made airships fly, along with the power source Numenon.
Panel 3, close-up of young Archer's face, full of wonder.
It was all I ever wanted. Everything else in my life was perfect. Perfection was never meant to last.
Panel 4, scene of a bombed-out village, a tattered Japanese flag among the rubble. The sky is dark and air thick with smoke.
In 1874, I was 15. War had broken out. My homeland of Japan was first to strike, but the British were quick to finish it.
Panel 5, a teenage Archer standing before a traditional Japanese tombstone in a cemetery. Archer's mother's picture is in a frame.
My mother was killed, and 4 nationals, like my father, expelled from the country. We barely had time for the funeral.
Panel 6, close-up of Archer as a very young man in his ensign naval uniform.
Shortly after my father and I fled to London, I joined the Royal Navy. I loved my homeland of Japan, but I was also angry for its carelessness.
Panel 1, or page 4. Panels 5. Panel
1.
Panel 1. View of the airship navigation panel. Gears, knobs, levers, and lights. Tubing for the steam power and 2 glowing green orbs are on it. Ringing bell sounds are emanating from the board. Panel 2. Close-up of Archer's face turned towards the sound.
Finally.
Panel 3. Archer stands before the navigation panel, turning a knob. Panel 4. Close-up of Archer's hand holding a printout from the ticker. It reads HMS ASAG-56.24 3350,1.699916 period.
There you are, old friend. What predicament have you gotten yourself in this time? I hope it is not as bad as mine.
Panel 5. Archer holds another small piece of parchment, handwritten. It reads, quote, trouble. My tenure and career on the ASAG is in jeopardy. I fear my time may be short. Period. Kali, period. End quote.
I just hope I can reach you in time.
Page 5, panels 4. Panel 1. Archer's hand hovers. Is it hover? Hovers.
Yeah, it hovers.
Green orbs that are the steering for the airship.
Not this day, Kitsu, I beg you.
Panel 2. Archer's hands are on the orbs and crackling green energy envelops him. His face is contorted in pain and shouting out, ah.
Oh, I guess I can do her voice. I forgot about her. This is your fate, my love. You killed me. Forever shall I drain your life. Forever. Kitsu's voice is disembodied and heard inside her Archer's mind. Sorry.
Panel 3. Archer grits his teeth and fights to gain control of the airship.
One day this will end, Kitsu. Right now I must do what is right. Turn, damn you, turn.
Panel 4, view of the airship making a turn midair and changing course.
Arg.
Archer's scream is heard, and he forced the airship to head his command. Page 6, panel 1. Aerial view of the airship HMS Asag. It is larger than the Ninurta, and the deck is filled with crew members, all of them encircling one person, Kali Shan. Captain Dumont watched from the deck of the ship's helm above the deck.
HMS Asag, sound over the North Sea. Then we have various crewmen. Kill him, dishonorable heathen, disgusting.
Panel 2, close-up of Captain Dumont standing on the helm overlooking the deck with a lieutenant standing next to him. His face is dour.
This cannot stand, Captain.
It's unnatural, it is. Panel 3, Captain Dumont raises his hand and the crew goes silent. Panel 4, Captain Dumont places his hands behind his back.
Who's Dumont?
Who's Dumont?
I believe I give it to Thomas, I think.
Me? Okay. Who brings forth these heinous accusations against the Asag's commander, Kali Shan?
Is it supposed to be a Japanese pronunciation or?
No. What, for Kali Shan?
Well, for any of these other proper nouns.
Well, the names of the airship are all based off of Sumerian gods. Sumerian mythology.
So who the hell knows how it's pronounced?
Who even knows? All right.
Panel 5, close-up of Kali. His hands are bound in a look of anger on his face.
Look for the love of another man, he does.
He tried to touch my bum, he did. Panel 6, Bosun Ivy holds a small book in his hand, holding it up in accusation.
Who's Bosun Ivy?
Oh, I'll do that one too then. I forgot about that one. Captain, this is Kali's journal. I secreted it from his quarters when the crew first began speaking of these rumors. In his own hand, he professes love for other men.
Page 7, panel 6. Panel 1, Dumont outstretched his hand.
Who is Dumont again?
Oh, wait, it's me again, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Give it here, Bosun.
Panel 2, Dumont opens the journal and reads it. Panel 3, Dumont looks up at Kali.
Commander Kali, what say you of these allegations in evidence?
Panel 4, Kali stands tall and defiant.
Kali.
I wasn't given a role, so I'm not saying
Tony is.
Oh yeah, that's me. Yeah. I have crossed no man on this ship and have only carried out my sworn duty as one of Her Majesty's airmen.
Panel 5, Dumont's face is stern.
Then you do not deny these allegations.
Panel 6, Kali merely stares and says nothing. Page 8, Panel 1, wide shot of the deck, Kali circled by the crew and Dumont looking down from the helm.
So be it, as captain of the ASAG, by the powers given to me by Her Majesty Queen Minerva of the British Empire, I find you, Kali Shan, guilty of hedonism. You are stripped of your rank, and the punishment is death by the plank.
Various crewmen.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Panel 2, Kali walks the plank, a crewman behind him with a sword pushing him along.
I go forward knowing I did my duty, better than most on this ship.
Panel 3, Kali spots another airship approaching the Asag that no one else sees amid the commotion of his execution, and he smiles.
I also know this will not be the end.
Panel 4, Kali steps off the plank, apparently falling to his death. Page 9, Panel 1, Kali at the last moment pivots and grabs onto the plank with his hands, bending it with his weight. Panel 2, Kali springboards up and somersaults in the air while the crewman on the plank holds up his sword in shock. Panel 3, close-up of Kali's bound hands coming down on the sword, cutting his binds on the crewman's sword. Panel 4, Kali punches the stunned crewman and takes the sword that is falling from his hand. Panel 5, Captain Dumont points and shouts from the helm.
Stop him, you fools.
Panel 6, Kali rushes forward and clashes swords with an oncoming crewman still standing on the plank.
Did you see that? How?
Stop him! Page 10, Panel 1, downward view from the shoulder of Kali. The Ninurta with Archer flies below the ASAG.
Hello, good man. Do you need a ride?
Took you long enough.
Panel 2, Kali leaps from the plank on the Essag and slides down the solar sails of the Ninurta.
If you came any later, you'd be picking me up in pieces.
Panel 3, Dumont runs to the rail and looks down, and Archer and the Ninurta. Archer is waving up at him.
Dantes, how dare you? You are already a wanted man, murderer.
Guess I have nothing to lose then, did I, Dumont? There can only execute me once. And that is 10 pages.
Page 10.
All right.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
All right.
So excuse a few of the typos because I literally wrote this all up last night. So I didn't have much time.
If you're a writer, you know what it's like to bang something out.
Yeah.
Yes, and I respect that.
Very immediately. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to forgive typos.
Really good timing though.
Absolutely.
At the end of the 10, at like 10 pages is like just the end of like the first action beat too. It's really good timing, I think.
It's a perfect cliffhanger. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like my first compliment is like right at the end of the 10 pages is like a good place for the 10 pages to. It's a really good tease.
Especially if that's going to be the second page in a comic, you want the last page before you flip it to usually be some kind of mystery.
The end of an action beat. Yeah, when you turn the page to the next page, you want it to be like the end of an action beat or something.
Even up to the final panel.
Yeah. But even page per page, you want like each page turn to be like something that moves to the next sort of scene, something like that. So that's good, and those are our first two compliments right off the bat. My third compliment, though, right off the bat, also is you start with airships. You basically already have me. I think like classic airships like this. I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Like we mentioned with Final Fantasy.
Yeah, Final Fantasy and that kind of stuff. And what was the other one that you mentioned?
Treasure Planet?
Treasure Planet.
Oh, yeah, Treasure Planet. That's right.
I've never actually seen the movie. I just watched the SF Debris review of it.
His stuff is good, too, yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to unscreen share now.
But that was especially, those are like really great. That's a really great visual in Treasure Planet. You see that it's like a spaceship, actually. But it just looks like an old sea ship. But the sails are like this glittering gold fabric.
I kind of love the idea more of an airship that's meant to fly through the sky of a planet, though, because it's like it's a cooler environment. You're going through the clouds like in open air, as opposed to an airplane where it's enclosed.
As a very smart person said, you got to have the clouds in the background so you get a sense of speed.
There you go.
That's right.
That's like in the movie, The Aviator.
The Aviator, Howard Hughes.
Exactly.
He demanded that he needed clouds in the background, specifically a very particular kind of appearance of cloud.
Yes. Specific appearance.
And any other part? Tony, have you done positives? I don't believe you have.
Yeah, I agree. It has this like I like the momentum that you set up everything and then get right into the action, or like you have the setup and then you have get the swashbuckling. It goes from beat to beat without breaking, I guess, the flow.
Right in the 10 pages too. That 10 page, you want your reader kind of hooked or drawn in, or whatever you're going to use to draw in your reader. You want it in that first 10 pages.
Swashbuckling too. That's another good thing that is good to add with airships is swashbuckling.
Yeah, jumping around and stuff and having adventures in the sky. I always like that concept.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys. I appreciate all that.
So I'll go for positives. It's very atmospheric. It's brooding, and I kind of like. Well, at least Captain Archer is. And I like brooding stuff. It's for somebody, it feels kind of Noir-ish, kind of like Bogart Sam Spade thing, where he's kind of talking to himself as he's solving the problems of the world, kind of there with his companion and the wife he killed and all that, kind of haunted figure. So it's certainly rich in atmosphere, and that's cool. And yeah, we got an action scene in the first 10 pages, and that was neat. So yeah.
It's got the backstory, but it's also not going to be. It's got that stuff basically shoved into that first 10 pages.
Yeah, a quick tease,
also,
like a quick tease of some kind of past that you assume you'll find out about
but
later.
also not confusing you either.
Yeah.
In fact, I was going to ask during the script reading, like really early on, is this alternate universe or is this the far, far future? And
But
it has the year 1874. So basically, steampunk aesthetic is Victorian times, but it's like an alternate timeline. Basically, there's they have. If you ever watched the movie Wild Wild West.
Yeah. I mean, not happily exactly, but I have seen it. I mean, because I wanted to like that movie because I liked. I mean, the original show.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, I watched one episode of the original show and it's like, holy shit, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if
that steam powered clockwork kind of stuff. If you're familiar with the movie Sucker Punch, what they did, like during that World War I scene, it's all
really
that
good. At least good visuals and like I was hoping that movie would be like completely for real. I was disappointed that it was all a fantasy. It was like, no, I want to see actual for real steampunk stuff.
Go ahead and run with it. Run with dragons, World War II bombers, and steampunk German zombies.
Yeah. Go ahead and make it real. See, that's one thing that's one of the biggest strengths of comic books is you can just be like that and be like, yeah, this is real. This is not a fantasy. This is actually happening. A dragon is being shot at from this World War II bomber. That's great.
Yeah, and it's the world that people are going to notice. It's going to be a world people recognize. It's Earth. It has the same nations, but it's a different timeline. It's
like some of the similar. Yeah, some of the similar politics, even these political alliances, with Europe and Japan.
Yeah, like just a skewed parallel of that.
Yeah.
It's nothing that's going to force anyone to go and read a history book. Make sure you read a history book first before you try and read my story. No.
Positive.
Oh, I mean, I thought it. I agree. It beautifully sets up something epic. I also really appreciate the steampunk nature of it, and also I just quickly steampunk, for anybody unaware, is essentially the mashup of that Victorian aesthetic, which also a lot of invention occurred with the current idea of invention and innovation. So imagine a very old typewriter that actually works like a computer, and vice versa.
Yeah. And by the way, I actually, just a little fun fact, I actually do steampunk art. I made leather and brass bracers and cosplay stuff. The navigation panel, it's actually physical in my basement. It's huge. It's wood. I built it and all these things. I'll show you guys some other time. But
right.
I would love to see that.
One of the positive is that just in how you're setting things up, to me, what I'm seeing and hearing and visualizing are two heroes that counterpoint each other.
Yeah, and it's going to be a crew. Again, I keep throwing out different examples, but if you think of like Firefly, if you ever seen that show, he's going to build a crew, which happens in these kind of stories and stuff. They starts with one guy, and then they end up building a crew, and they're just a rogue crew, and
ragtag.
Yeah,
which is good.
Yeah, Firefly, always good point of inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Even if you don't like Joss Whedon, which there's a lot of complaints about Joss Whedon.
I know he co-created the show. I'm sure it's the other guy whose name I don't remember. He did all the real work.
Give him the credit and take all the credit away from Joss Whedon.
Yes.
I mean, Joss Whedon definitely has his talents, at least.
It's possible. Yeah.
Just don't bring him in to finish a movie. That's
So coming back to constructives.
Yes, please.
This one, who wants to go first on constructives?
Does anyone have one?
All right, then I will go ahead and go first.
Okay.
All right, page 5, panel 2. Kitsu's voice is disembodied and heard inside Archer's mind. This is kind of the equivalent of a comic book unfilmable. How are we supposed to know that?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
I mean, if you
do it out loud.
Yeah. I mean, you could. Do you want to put that in a caption, or do you want the artist to draw it? If you want the artist to draw it, then you need to put what the artist should draw.
That was actually one of my confusions. I wasn't sure because in my mind I saw it as like the hazy bubble.
Okay, so this be a letterer note that, like,
there is a note to the letter. It's like he's hearing it in his mind, but it's like, how do you draw that exactly?
Right.
That can be tricky. It might just work better if it's just out loud, or if you just assume that it's out loud. Because I don't think it would take away anything necessarily, unless it's absolutely vital to your overall plot that it has to be only heard in his head.
Yeah, well, it's going to be, because when he has his crew, no one else hears it except him.
Yeah,
and eventually, one other person does hear it except him. So it's kind of crucial that only him hears it.
It's a matter of how to sell it then, because that can be tricky to establish. I mean, you have to establish to the audience how do.
That's one of the things I was thinking, because I was just remembering that I did some typesetting for a Dojin, and I was like, how do I make it clear that somebody else is talking if I'm using the same font? I guess I need to use different font, so it's really.
I've also seen letterers use different colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
So
like different font size.
Yeah, and the way you make the bubble in a specific way also can be like if it's not pointing to anything specific, because usually, the tail on the word bubble means that it's out loud. And if you take the tail away, that means that it's like transmitted, say, through radio or something. And that's a way to do it, but I'm not sure specifically.
Where I've seen it at, when I think of it as that hazy bubble, if you're familiar, if you ever read any old DC comics of Dr. Fate, when Naboo would talk to Kent Nelson, it would always be like that hazy kind of like bubble next to his head, and no one else heard it except Kent Nelson.
Kind of like if that's how you wanted to do it, then just put letter or note, show these as hazy bubbles, and you have to decide as the writer creator, like, how are we going to do these things? Because if I was the artist and you handed me the script, I would hand it back to you and go, what do you want me to draw here?
Gotcha.
So, Cool. And similarly, on panel 4 of the same page, Archer's scream is heard, and he forced the airship to head to, I guess, I don't know if that's head or heed his command.
Heed.
Yeah, okay. What do you want the artist to draw?
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, I think we, a couple of unfilmables there. I don't, and I give this note a lot. I don't know the conflict for the story yet, and I as a personal preference like that to be expressed in the first 10 pages. We've got a character. I'm assuming Archer is the main character because we opened with him, and we know his kind of tragic backstory, and that he killed his wife for whatever reason. So we've got a character, we've got a world, but what is the character out to do? What is the conflict? What is the what is the engine that's going to compel this story to move forward? And that I don't know yet. At the close of 10 pages, he's gotten together with his buddy off of another ship, and that's super cool and groovy. But like, you could literally just roll credits right there, and it could be a cool short, because I wouldn't be left wondering, well, gosh, what about the thus and so? Because you haven't given me a thus and so to worry about yet. So I tend to like the conflict a bit earlier.
Sometimes it does go further in, though. Like, it's
I understand that. I'm just saying.
And my plan is going to be in the next 10, because it's going to be the 25 pages or so, most likely. It's going to be in the next pages. He's going to talk to Kali and explain it, and that's where that comes into it. Because I didn't want too much exposition in the first 10 pages. Because if I filled that in there, then the action would be gone.
Yeah.
You want to draw in the reader.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, it's good to draw in the
action. Action is the best way to do that. Is big action, character, dynamic character actions.
Specifically unique action that's like, you can't get this action anywhere else, at least, or not that it's something that maybe other people have seen over and over again. This is like at least more fresh, for sure. Yeah. I like that, but it's that's some of the ideas. Those are like definitely novelist ideas where he's communicating in a way telepathically with his ship or something. That's definitely something you would see in a novel, but in a comic book or Well, it's actually harder in a comic book than even like a movie or TV show, because in a movie or TV show, you can hear the voice and realize it's not being spoken.
Right.
But and the way that nobody else reacts to that voice, but that's tricky on its own too. That nobody else can hear that voice, and that
in a TV show, you would have to have the character stop and like make it really clear through the character's actions. Oh, they're hearing this in their head. They have to stop.
Right.
In a comic book, it's just a panel.
Yeah,
Right.
A panel, you draw it.
I think
Right.
either way, though,
All right.
sometimes you do have to establish to the reader that nobody else can hear it, like through some specific way, in a way.
Preston wants to take back the reins.
Yeah, so I will go Thomas. Give me your view at some point. I'm not going to leave you guys out.
I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah. By the way, bosun is spelled Boatswain. It is a very bizarrely spelled word.
Yeah, I should correct that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Can you spell that again for me?
Boat. It's spelled boatswain.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Like the coxswain, but
Like-
a boat.
Yeah, boats. Yeah, and then but it's pronounced bosun.
It's also like Oaksel, which is like spelled with 10 apostrophes or something.
Yeah.
All right, so we got Kali, who's going to be executed for being gay. Okay, I mean, it's. I don't know that necessarily adds to the story, except for telling us that he's gay, which I'm assuming is going to be important later. But
the environment, to the political environment of the thing too,
And also, it spells out how
it's criminalized, that kind of thing.
it spells out how they're renegades. It's a renegade crew that this guy's building. That's the way I looked at it.
okay.
But
I mean,
you have a point though, that it's like, what does this say about the overall character? It's like nothing yet, I would say.
Right.
But-
yeah, there's something that's going to play in with later, with that and stuff. It's not just a it's not just inserted just to be inserted. Let's put it that way. It's not. Yeah.
But also, I did get the feeling, because of the way that he almost sort of brags that he served better than most everyone else on the crew. The way I felt about that is like, he probably is telling the truth when he says that.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
he probably has done his job
Yeah.
to the best of his ability. He has not let down the crew.
Right.
although I gotta say, like, for me, I didn't like that line. I mean, I just didn't like. I mean, who goes to their death like, I was a better sailor than all you bastard? Like, it's dumb.
Well, I mean, depends on the tone too, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tone for me is pride.
Yeah, there's
He takes a lot of pride in his military career, and so that's
it depends on how the reader feels about somebody who's proud of their work too.
yeah. I mean, in that kind of situation, there's a lot of subjectivity there, and depending on the reader, there's some reader that might just be turned off by it. There might be readers that will like it. It all depends on the subjectivity of it and the reader itself at that point.
I think though that to that aspect, it's that doesn't necessarily mean you have to, as the writer, you're like, you audience better love this character. You can always say, you don't have to love this character, but here he is, he's good at his job. Just as
One of my main characters in my novel is my absolute favorite character. He's what started this whole thing for me, and he's literally a character that everybody hates. So it's like I get it. It's like
ER did that video when ER reviewed the Death Note. He was talking about how a lot of people make the mistake of being like, you need to make your main character the most lovable and identifiable character. He straight up said that's a mistake. You need
light's supposed to be despised.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Well, you can despise him, but you can also still see his point of view.
Yes.
Yeah.
My other note is all right, you're really setting the tone here for basically your entire story.
Mm-hmm.
And this is our first experience with violence in your world, and the guy doesn't seem particularly concerned. He's doing the Luke Skywalker thing off of walking
exactly
plank.
from Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a Jedi. He's just boom, let me launch myself in the air and come down on the sword of somebody else who's wielding it. And he seems kind of confident that he's going to be able to cut his own bonds off. And I'm like, that is like superhuman superhero stuff, which is fine. But you have now established in my mind that the expectation from here on out is that the action is going to be kind of campy, and that there's not going to be a lot of real danger.
Low stakes, kind of.
I was actually expecting him to jump off the ship as soon as he saw the other one.
Yeah,
I was thinking of doing that too, but I wanted some action in it.
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, that's the thing. As the writer, it's like I want to up the action here to make it more actiony. You know, that's the prerogative of the writer.
I would definitely suggest not having him jump right off of the plank and land on the other ship in midair and have him land safely. I would say, yeah, you probably did it better this way, but yeah, it's very outlandish.
It's a little fantastical.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way, the way I did it, because it is steampunk, and there is going to be some deep elements in here, and there's a storyline. Obviously, you're going to see in the other ones, the other pages. But there is a pirate aspect to it. You know what I mean? And pirates are campy, and they do a lot of the swashbuckling and the stuff like that. So there is that aspect to it with it. But I understand, I get Preston's point, especially when it's first 10 pages, you're just reading it, and that's the what you're seeing.
It's a risk worth considering, definitely.
If done right, you can still do exactly that, as long as it looks like he's struggling enough. It won't look like he's using the force,
or in the future, in the future, if it's like, okay, there will be more stakes in the future, it'll be upped. Just in this part, we just want to show, some cool action to kick off.
And I guess from reading it, because what I was trying to impart with it was, out of his corner of his eye, he didn't know what was going to happen. He thought he was dead. Then out of the corner of his eye, he saw the Ninurta coming. So he's like, what he was doing was, he knew he couldn't win. It was just biding enough time for him to get close enough for him to jump off.
I kind of thought he was expecting the ship to show up. That's the impression.
Well, he was. He just didn't know when it was going to get there.
Okay, all right.
Or was going to make it.
Yeah, that's right, because he says it's like, oh, it took you long enough. So it's like definitely.
But again, you're kind of falling on another cliche, which is just in the nick of time. These two independent events of the arrival of the name of that other ship that's hard to pronounce and the execution of this guy by walking the plank just happened to happen at the same time. It's one of those coincidences.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's harder to avoid, because if the ship was just there the whole time hidden, it like sort of lessens the potential action.
Yeah.
Right. And look, writers do this stuff all the time because we want the suspense of the moment that is then relieved just in the nick of time. But I mean, you're opening with it. It's like the first 10 pages. And again, this sets the expectations for everything. So what you've kind of told me here unconsciously is I'm going to be expecting that the crises that you're presenting are going to be resolved, just in the nick of time kind of thing. So.
But I get what you're saying. I mean, that's not my long-term plan for the entire book, but I get the perception that you're seeing just from the first 10 pages of it.
Okay, cool. Jen, you got any constructive?
Nope. Let's keep going.
Okay. Anybody else?
I mean, well, the only thing that I was going to say is a slight thing is that when it comes to steampunk, again, it depends on how much the audience might care about it. Some people would be like, oh, steampunk's played out, and some people would be like, oh, steampunk's great, I love it instantaneously, anything to do with it. And it's like your mileage may vary, but I mean, that's not something that the writer can just say, oh, I better only put in so much steampunk. I think the real problem is if a writer expects steampunk to carry their entire story, like, oh, here's my story, it's got steampunk. Okay, what's it about? It's got steampunk, That's not good enough.
I love the steampunk. Well, that's actually what I was going to say.
And the story clearly has story as like the main focus. So.
I mean, to give you the I guess spoiler warning. The reason why I mentioned Numenon right at the start, the Numenon is the MacGuffin. It's going to be this. It's central to the entire conflict of the whole storyline. And another idea, I guess, I'm a huge anime fan, so there's some anime manga kind of aspects to the way I'm planning the story out.
That's sort of the modern thing, is a lot of writers these days are just going to be inspired by a lot more anime and manga.
Not much inspiration to take from American comics anyway.
Yeah,
Well, again, well, it depends. I mean, again, I'm a huge DC guy. That my DC is my comic base. That's what started my whole love for comics was DC.
I mean, like 80s comics or anything in the last 2 years?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm 45 years old, so I mean, I started reading Silver Age Flash comics and Carmen Infantino and and all those guys. So yeah, I've read Silver Age, Golden Age. I read some too. But I mean, not originals, but I started reading all those. And the 80s was my big thing, and the 90s and stuff. Comics in the last 10, 20 years, not so much. From DC. But,
you and the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a changing world, and I think a lot of writers and artists and stuff, they really need to be keeping up. They can't just be cornering themselves off and being like, I don't care if manga's more popular or what. I'm going to keep reading just this. It's like as a writer, it's kind of your job to. You
shouldn't only read manga either, but you should at least experience it. That's the thing is, we have a lot of
branching out.
We have a lot of history with anime. And especially with anime fans trashing anime to their faces and getting them angry. But I would still never say I'll never watch anime because of that. I'll watch anime. I'll consume it. There's a lot of anime out there that I love.
Yeah, no matter what you hate, I think at some point you should have an awareness of it. And I think that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, more yesterday kids too.
Anything else, guys? Hit me with anything else before we go.
Yes, it's Jen, and I just want to. It's not so much you personally as the group, which is, when I started off, I was explaining the definition of design leadership, and I really feel like this choice of steampunk as the visual style is the stake that you're putting in the ground. And it's just something for the rest of you to keep in mind. You're all choosing different styles. I think it's, you're in some sense, you're presupposing what the audience may or may not be over. But I do think that Darth, I'm just going to call you Darth. I think Darth is making that, he's putting the stake in the ground for what, and I am guessing that at some point in the story, there will be a strong, it will be clear to readers why there needs to be that mashup of time periods. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, thank you.
There really hasn't been a whole lot of big steampunk. I mean, what was the biggest steampunk franchise that anyone can think of? I can't think of a single one.
I mean, franchise? No. I mean, there's individual movies.
Amazon just did Aeronauts, which looks a little
that I haven't seen. The other Amazon show, Carnival Row, while it's not, it has a steampunk feeling to it, but it's more fantasy. Okay. But that's kind of there. But there hasn't really been any big franchises, really, just individual.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
yeah, that's another one. But again, it's not really a franchise. It was a movie.
Order 1886.
The PlayStation 4 game.
The one game.
And I think Arcanum, who is by the guys who did Fallout, the original Fallout, I think they did that. That's not a big one. That one wasn't really big. But I mean, in a way, that's a strength for the whole kind of setting, because
I'm comparing it to like zombies. It's like the zombie genre. It's like nuclear, and then you also got The Walking Dead. You had the Day of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead, and then you got The Walking Dead. Just decade after decade, zombies. But there's been no real big steampunk.
And I think that's a good thing.
It's untrodden ground, really. So
exactly. Yeah, that's basically
it's not oversaturated.
Exactly.
Like zombies are.
Like zombies, yeah.
All right, Tony. I pulled up and have am sharing. Is it sharing or short? Anyway, pages for yesterday's kids. What are we looking at here? So this is page 21 through 30, then.
Page 20 through 30, I think.
Okay. Because it opens on page 0, a bold.
Yeah, it's weird just how it's formatted like that. I'm trying to look for a new software because Celtics doesn't seem to want to like format stuff for a PDF very well. You mentioned what was the one you mentioned?
WriterDuet.com.
Yeah, that one. I might check that out later.
Yeah, you get a discount code PJC20. And it's free to use. It's only when you go to exporting it that it might go, well, hey, you're not a paid member. But,
Right. So this picks up right after we left off. Big fight scene, etc. Handing out roles. See, Thomas, you want to be Shane.
Right.
Thomas's brother, you want to be Donnie.
All right.
See, Fal. Dorothy can be Fal. Preston. Let's see.
I see a Tycho.
Yeah, you can be Tycho.
I see a Rhea.
Rhea.
I see a
Let's see.
We also have Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer, you want to be Rhea?
Sure.
And then we need a narrator.
I'll be the narrator.
And I also see a Craig.
That can be Craig too.
Okay.
So I think that's all the characters.
Very well. So I am Tycho. That's
all
right. I'll do the best damn Tycho you've ever seen. All right, narrator, start us off.
All right. Shane pulls Donnie's sword out of the wall, inspecting it.
Who's Donnie and who's Shane?
I'm Shane.
Right.
Okay. So that makes me Donnie. Okay. Hey.
Donnie comes over to Shane, holding the flash drive box up to him.
Trade ya.
Shane smiles. The kids gather around Donnie while the marauders regroup and lurk away.
That was a close call, even for you guys.
Meh, we've gotten out of worse, but thanks for showing up. If it weren't for you, they could have, well...
Donnie sheathes his sword, smirking.
Nah, they would have killed you. Marauders have more sense than that. More than anything, they try to scare away the weak ones.
Shane frowns, looking at his feet. He's still clutching Tycho's bandana. Shane looks up, surprised.
Hey, kid.
Tycho yells across the room, his comrades moving on ahead of him. There's a large cut on his face where Donnie hit him.
Next time I see you, we fight one-on-one, and I'm going to take back what you stole from me.
Shane narrows his eyes. He wraps the bandana around his raw neck, the redness slightly visible above the cloth. With a cold glare, he yanks the knot tight. Tycho smirk. See page 2. Exterior of the mall. The kids make it outside through the shattered front door. Fal and Rhea get on their bikes. Shane walks side by side with Donnie at a distance from them.
You guys should be... Oh, sorry. I'm not Donnie. I'm not sure.
Yeah. You guys should be in the clear from here on out later.
What, you're not going to come with us? We're still going to give you your cut.
Donnie holds up his hands in protest.
Oh no, you three found that treasure on your own. It's yours to keep. You earned it.
Donnie tugs at Shane's bandana. Shane smirks.
And you earned this.
Fal and Rhea are on up ahead, waiting for Shane to catch up.
Cockerton, you coming or what?
Shane runs off to his bike, turning around to Donnie halfway.
Hey, thanks.
Donnie nods.
Anytime, Shane.
As the sun begins to set, the three ride out of the mall parking lot together.
So, pawn shop?
Yep. After that, I don't know. Maybe we can head over to my place and play some video games?
Our legs are probably going to fall off by then.
Shane, looking forward, eyes full of adventure, smiles as he and his friends are illuminated in the glow of the sun.
Whichever comes first.
A full-page spread of Shane, Fal, and Rhea riding off into the sunset on the long derelict road. We can see ruined buildings lining the road, most of them overgrown with trees and grass. Large, sleek communication towers loom in the distance to imply that human civilization has since rebuilt itself after what we can assume to be a long-ago apocalyptic event. End of chapter 1.
So that would be the close of the first issue, essentially?
Yeah, first issue, chapter. Exterior of a pawn shop. 3 bikes are parked outside.
What do you mean, nothing?
Interior of the pawn shop. The surly man behind the counter holds one of the flash drives in his hand as Shane scowls in the foreground. Like I said, there's no data on these anymore. Can't sell them to a museum. Looks like you were about 50 years too late. Fun fact, USB drives are not designed for long-term storage and only hold data for 10 years after being unplugged from a computer. Shane points his finger, yelling while Fal attempts half-heartedly to hold him back.
This is bullshit, Craig. Do you have any idea how hard we fought to...
However, the pawn shop owner glances at the flash drive he's holding, shrugging. Thumb drives from this era are still considered antiques. For the whole box, I'll give you 500. Shane leans on the counter. Craig glares at him.
600.
550.
600.
That's not how haggling works. 500. Shane holds his hands in a begging motion while Fal and Rhea imitate.
Come on, Craig. You know we're good kids. We're responsible. And you're like our cool uncle giving us that extra because you believe in us. And we'll put it towards college and...
Okay, fine. Christ. Craig pulls up a holographic screen and taps it while Shane does the same on the one coming from his wrist. 500 plus an extra 100 to fuck off. Shane looks over his shoulder, grinning at his friends. Fal gives 2 thumbs up. Rhea rolls her eyes. Later that night, they are all playing video games in front of the TV.
Yes! Eat my ass, losers!
Blah.
The kids lay back, their controllers resting in their laps.
So what are you guys going to do with your cut?
I don't know. Probably buy more video games.
I'm going to save up for a truck. You?
Shane looks off, smiling.
I'm putting it towards new equipment. I want to keep going with this. I was thinking we could try out for the big leagues next year.
Fal leans forward. Rhea tilts her head, skeptical.
Rating leagues? You think we're good enough?
Hey, we held our own against 3 Marauders. I think that puts us beyond good enough.
Shane jumps to his feet, miming some action stuff. Fal looks on, entranced. Rhea looks halfway away, trying to appear disinterested.
Think about it. Pro Raiders get to travel all over the world, explore ruined cities that even the military hasn't fully mapped out, and get paid a ton for it. How cool is that?
Sounds really...
Fal's mouth opens wide. Rhea helps Fal to his feet and leads him out of the room.
Yeah, I'm worn out just thinking about it. Ask me again in the morning. Or don't. Night.
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 Fal lays asleep in his bed. Rhea's asleep in the guest bed. Shane lays awake on the living room couch, eyes half open, glancing down his bandana. He closes his eyes, smiling. Shane stares at the reader, deer in the headlights expression, hands halfway up. A laser sight is trained on his chest, right above a harness device strapped over his shirt.
I'm starting to think maybe this isn't a good idea.
Shane, Fal, and Rhea are out in the woods. Rhea casually points a pistol at Shane. Fal stands behind her, looking ready to jump in at a moment's notice.
Quit being a baby. You had a gun pointed at your face 3 days ago. How's this any different?
I don't know. That was in the heat of the moment, like a reflex. This is like, well, the anticipation is kind of freaking me out, I guess.
Rhea raises her eyebrows, limply gesturing with the gun in her hand.
Shane, I'm only going to ask you this once. Do you want me to shoot you or not?
Shane scrunches his shoulders together meekly.
Well,
Shane is knocked back as he is shot in the chest, a bright blue light where the bullet impacts. Shane lays on the ground. Fal runs up to him. Rhea stays in the background, clutching the gun with both hands.
Foley Huck, Shane.
Calf, wheeze, calf.
Fal helps Shane up. The impact area on Shane's force field is smaller and faded from his chest.
You all right?
Yeah, no broken ribs, I think.
Fal eyes Rhea wide-eyed and nervous. Rhea's expression is halfway between ambivalence and guilt. Shane gets to his feet.
Hey, don't give me that look. Went with my gut. Can't hesitate when you're out in the field.
Yeah, well, put down the gun and I'll feel better about that advice.
Levels at...
Shane reacts in surprise as he reads a hologram projected from his wrist.
55%? Damn it. Just one bullet and almost half the battery's gone. $200 down the drain.
Shane tugs at the strap of his harness. Fal shrugs.
I mean, that's not a sports shield, right? Not exactly paying for military-grade protection there.
I guess. Plus, I'm not dead, so that's good.
Is that 10 pages? Or
about.
Yeah.
Well,
because I think I went one over.
It says this is page... Oh, wait.
Yeah, because we started on page 0. So,
Right.
yeah. So that was 10 pages.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Stop sharing. Okay. Who wants to start with positives?
I like the Trailer Park Boys reference.
Yeah.
Pay you $100 to fuck
To
up.
fuck off.
Fuck off.
I mean, it's continuing on the tone from last time, where it's sort of like a lighthearted kids getting into adventures and stuff and planning for the future. Not I guess I won't get into criticisms right now because I'm sure we'll get into that. But it sticks to the tone, and seem, it's coming off as lighthearted, but at the same time, you get the idea that these kids could get into trouble or danger, but at the same time, things seem generally fun, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I guess I can go. Now was this a continuation for something else? Because I
Yeah.
think maybe
Last week.
Gotcha. So I didn't think I read all that. So I'm going kind of half cocked with it. But as far as positives, I feel the relationship between the kids in the group is very organic. You can really feel how much of a group dynamic they have and how they interact with each other, and it feels real and natural. The dialogue between them and the way it flows, it's very, very natural, and it's easy to get drawn into like being an observer of this group of kids.
Yeah, I want to ditto that one. It does feel like we're observing real life teenagers.
There's something kind of relatable about that.
Without using the goofy slang, like goofy future slang, like what was that Batman?
Batman Beyond. It was Shui. Was the
Shui.
word for cool?
I was thinking Dark Knight Returns is whoever it was, not Kitty Kelly.
You mean
Carrie
Kelly.
Yeah,
Carrie
Kelly, or she's talking with the mutants and she's like using this goofy slang, and it's kind of forced, but it's also very silly. It's probably best to not do that.
Actually, I was planning on doing that for the adult characters. They're the only ones who use the future slang and embarrasses the kids. It's like nobody says Sway anymore.
The kids are
Battlestar
like
Galactica with Frack.
with Frack. Yeah, that was another thing I was thinking of, where they sort of drove that into the ground at some point.
Was it
I remember.
Lobo?
No. Oh yeah, Lobo would say frag. The frag.
Frag. Yeah.
But I mean, Lobo was straight up comedic.
Yeah, that served the purpose of what it was doing.
Well, you know what they're doing with Battlestars. They wanted to get that roughness to be able to swear but still be on network television.
Yeah.
So that's why.
And I remember that starting to annoy
to stop saying that word in class.
Frack.
Frack.
I just want to say that I wasn't in last week's, but I was there when 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really feel like the flow between the characters, again, ditto, is quite natural. Also, I am really digging that moment, and it's not because I was her, but I am really digging how you wrote that moment where Rhea shoots him, because it's startling, and it's not over dramatized. It's
it's still fun and cute.
It's come across good because I'm seeing stories by Irish saying, why did Rhea shoot Shane? I was thinking like it doesn't really come across right away.
No,
but that's she like they're testing out the force field.
Yeah, I definitely got that impression. I mean, what it reminded me a lot of immediately, I was almost like, are you taking that scene from Kick-Ass where Big Daddy shoots his own daughter? But I mean, this is clearly different. In fact, I think this fits, but like that was supposed to be ridiculous, crazy. Whereas this is almost like kids being, or they're like young teenagers, but they're sort of getting into trouble in a way. It's like, hey, we found a bulletproof vest. Let's try shooting each other with it for fun. But this also is for an actual purpose. It's like, here, I bought this like a protective shield. Try shooting me with it. Let's see how well it works.
Right.
And that works as like a teenage thing, but also as a practical thing.
He could have killed her if he broke her rib cage or her clavicle or her collarbone.
Or no, she shot him.
Right. You
mean Kick-Ass?
Kick-Ass,
he actually could have killed her.
She's like 10.
Yeah, that's right.
And he shoots her with a 44 Magnum.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. In
he was using low velocity rounds. I remember that.
Okay.
I was thinking about like putting something like that in here.
Thank God. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Have we done all of the positives? Has anybody else?
I didn't say anything. It's got some positive correlations to the movie City Limits. That's actually, I was reading.
You know what? Yeah. There's a slight reminiscence. Not that City Limits was a good movie.
A few days ago on Instapundit about like modern love for post-apocalyptic stories. You know, it's just like we want to be able to say that we're in more control of our lives nowadays, and it's easier to do that when society has already collapsed.
Yeah, in a way.
And
yeah,
I really love the use of the establishing the force field only will work for like 2 shots. So it's not magic.
Yeah, and it tells the reader right away here, this will blunt like 2 shots at like full charge.
They're not invincible, but at the very least they can soak a bullet without being like, oh, you're shot. I don't got time to bleed. None of that shit.
No, it's not like Master Chief, right?
Yeah, exactly.
City Limits is a
positive note from the comments. I loved how it went through good balance between description and dialogue for a script.
That was actually, it was a good they had a good character dynamic between the characters.
Yeah, the kids, like you kind of like, you want to like these kids. You're like, oh, they're having, and without making them too safe, like too like child friendly, like they're shooting each other.
Yeah, they're not too precocious. But you get that establishment that they're fairly closely knit.
Yeah.
And
could you repeat that? I think it cut out for a second.
It was you get the sense that they're closely knit, like these kids actually like each other, that they're friends.
Okay, yeah.
You know why they'd be friends.
Yeah.
As opposed to other group team efforts where it's like, why would these people ever be around?
Yeah. Like, some writers make it's like, hey, they're teenagers, so they're going to bicker. And it's like, if you do that too much, you're going to, the reader's going to be like, why do these people like each other?
They're trashing each other every single opportunity.
Or
never hang out with these people.
A lot of comic books, like teenage superhero team up books, they're like, oh, they're yelling at each other so much. And it's like, these people clearly hate each other. Why are they in a team together?
The Titans TV show, I never watched it, but I think the live action one, the recent one,
to generate drama, it's like they're always yelling at each other. They're like, well, you do this, and they're breaking each other's arms and say, fuck you, motherfucker, piece of shit.
They're calling each other faggots continuously.
Yeah, it's like, okay, at some point it's like, dial it back, and then be like, just have friends who like each other, who enjoy each other's company, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's something that's a little rare in a weird way.
Show me some people who can actually get along.
Yeah. Without being like too friendly, even.
Can we drop the F-bomb in here
because
it's
about writing.
Is Yale going to hear this and be like, you can't say that?
No. But anyways, so that's the compliment stuff.
All right.
Yeah. Constructives. Go ahead.
I mean, I would say that it's sort of an uneven ending, like ending one chapter and going to the beginning. So it's kind of a weird place to get a sense. Like again, like Lunga is sort of first time hearing about this story, so I assume it's sort of like hard.
While
to
you
keep
guys
up
were
with.
talking, when you guys were talking, I went into the Discord and pulled up the other one. So I've been speed reading the original one.
Oh, okay. I wasn't here last week if you did this reading, so I was kind of like jumping into the deep end here.
Yeah, I was going to say that could be like as far as jumping in out of nowhere. It's like, what's going on? You might be lost, and that's why it's good to read the whole thing.
But honestly, I'll say this. I didn't say this for the positives, but usually my first question that I asked for any story is, if you give me the intro, do I want to keep reading it? And based on this, I would. Yeah,
even from like chapter 3, it's like, well, I want to go back and see what I missed, and that's always a good thing. Now, as our constructive criticisms, like, what else is good about this?
It's more positives.
Yeah, I'm actually finding myself more interested in this story and setting, especially last week. You were talking about how it's a post-apocalypse, but it's during or sort of after the Reconstruction. And it's this new generation that's only known the Reconstruction and nothing of the apocalypse in a way. and I really like that idea as a setting. I think that's what Zombie was talking about too.
Also, kind of like in Fallout, I mean,
Fallout's like middle. It's like the complete ruins, whereas this is like stuff has actually been rebuilt.
Well, that's actually one of the things I love. I think one of the things a lot of people love about New Vegas is that its society is already rebuilding. You're getting the factions that are building themselves up. And that's why it also takes place 200 years after the bombs dropped, because it's about, what are people doing now?
That's like nuclear, and it's called Fallout. Whereas this, it's like whatever apocalypse this is. It's clearly something that people could recover from, and I like that. I like that as the setting. But again, we're supposed to be talking about. If you want, we got derailed again.
If you want some criticisms, I did mention City Limits. That's not a good movie.
No, it's not. But I mean, not in it. It did give me that sense of the sort of that feeling of tone, except City Limits was just trash. But it gave me that idea. Yeah, it's the sort of same tone of like adventure.
City Limits did at least deliver that atmosphere. It's almost like a comfortable atmosphere of, just these young people are trying to establish these connections, prove themselves as
finding adventure. The question is, how well will it be executed too, though? And I still don't exactly know yet. We're still in this very, very early phase of the story where we're just sort of soaking in the characters' lives. And but I always say that can. But
we already see their hopes and dreams, plans for the future.
Yeah, that's always a good thing.
Testing this force field, this bullet deflecting force field, is part of their plan for the future.
Yeah,
they're planning for the danger to come.
It's like a good character moment. I'm trying to think of like some actually negative things too.
It's planning for what?
I have something.
Yeah, the planning for what's a good question.
Yeah. Go ahead,
well, and again, I want to start actually with a positive that rolls into the next part of it. So I mean, the character building is tremendous. And because I did go back, like I said, and read the other one, so because I didn't want to give constructives without actually reading prior to it. So there's a long period of character development with these group of kids from the first one and the one we read today, which is great. We're learning a lot about the kids. But what I saw is I got it was post-apocalyptic just from your reading here before you even got to the end of the chapter. I felt this very Peter Panish kids, group of kids hanging out together and surviving together in this post-apocalyptic world. And something happened, but I'm not getting much world building on other than there's cracked buildings and a kind of a Mortal Instruments vibe of pulling up old tech, to sell because it's valuable. But I'm not getting a feel of the world itself other than it's post-apocalyptic because there's broken buildings.
Okay.
So when I'm reading something like that, it's like, I mean, the characters are drawing me in. It's enough to at least for that to draw me in. So that's good. But I would like to see a little more world building and that kind of thing, at least, especially when we're getting into the second issue now in the book, and I still haven't seen much of the world building. Also, it seems like they're kind of living pretty much a normal life. They're playing video games. I don't see much struggle other than saying we're selling these USB drives.
That's the point of the setting. It's like post struggle of the rebuilding.
I could easily imagine though they could be playing like Mega Man 2. And
it could be old, outdated
outdated games, maybe on an emulator, maybe even on an antique NES or something. Well, I mean, I don't think an NES would still. NES was breaking down back,
like 10 years afterwards,
right?
Yeah, 20 years ago.
I guess my question is what's their struggle?
That's the thing, is that they don't really have like a major struggle right now.
At that point, again, they're going to be one though.
Like I think that's once we see their first major failure, that's where the struggle is going to come in.
Okay, so is there a reason why they're like? I mean, unless I'm wrong, I'm assuming they're orphans.
No, they have stable families. Okay. Well, yeah, like Val has a mom and dad. Rhea has a mom. Shane has a mom.
Okay. So they're just friends hanging out, and they have family. Okay. I don't know if I missed that in the speed reading or not, but okay. So they have families and stuff. Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
I wasn't sure either, but it's like there's always a time you want to make sure that you're not wasting too much of your reader's time before you are telling them these details. It's like it depends on how you space it out, and if you space it out too much, then you run the risk of trying too hard to put things off that you could just be telling them right away. That's always a tricky risk for writers who are like, well, this is foreshadowing. They'll learn this later. And it's like, if there's no reason they can't learn this right now, then usually they should. But it depends on, if you're telling another part of the story, if you're telling a part of the story, then, you're telling that story. So it's not like now shoehorn in this, it's all in its natural time. So it's up to the writer to really know when the right time is, but as long as you're not intentionally trying to space things out too much too.
If they're still playing video games 5 more chapters in,
exactly.
that adventure sure was tough. Let's go play some more video games. Then I think maybe you need to get to the point.
Yeah. But I mean, that was only 1 page too, so that got right next to the next point. That was very well timed.
You only have to do that once.
And this isn't. I don't really want to consider this a constructive, more of a question, just on my part. So, what's the need of them to have these weapons and shields?
Well, they want to become raiders, or at least Shane wants to become a pro raider. And I wanted to get into that. There was in the previous draft, there was a scene where Shane is watching what's a actual professional raider match is, and with competitive raiding, it's like I have this whole sport in my head figured out where it's basically like a battle royale, except instead of killing people, you're like scavenging for these caches that are hidden in this big map. So it's kind of like competitive scavenger hunting in a way. Okay. I want to get into that later.
What would happen if raider groups encountered each other during the scavenger run, though?
Well, they have stun weapons.
I think you need to format this as a different kind of story.
Okay.
And it's fine if you want to keep your setting, a post-apocalyptic setting, but I think you honestly need to format this as a sports movie. Like Rudy, or even like
if that's the overall goal, if you
something like that. Like if these are kids who got a dream about raiding, then we need to see we need to see them just get their ass kicked when it comes to raiding, which didn't happen, by the way. Like last time, they kind of more or less reasonably easily dealt with the opposing bad guys. Like I didn't feel like they were in too much concern. But like sports movies have kind of you need to show the team just getting the shit kicked out of them in the beginning. And then the story becomes about their conflict to coalesce as a group, to find their group dynamics, to find how their unique traits as individuals can contribute to a cohesive group, which allow them to triumph over the bad people with the special magic and the right coaching.
That's the question of stakes.
Honestly, though, I that's My Hero Academia starts kind of like this, where it's not competitive, it's sort of more friendly, and then it becomes really serious as they encounter professional villains.
Yeah, that's sort of that really long-term sort of manga storytelling. And that's what a lot of that's one thing that can be a detriment, is like if everyone's expecting to tell their 100 volume Naruto length story. That can be a detriment for like new
only
readers.
100 volumes. I think Naruto's more than that now.
It's tricky to how you consider it versus how it will play out. Because if your whole story is essentially like a sports, like trying to be the best kind of thing, then the whole beginning sort of has nothing to do with any of that. And it's like you could theoretically dump all of it, but at the same time, it's like if your goal is also to just tell like the beginning of your story as almost a disconnected episode, I mean, because it's really funny that the first 4 volumes of Berserk are like a completely different, like has almost nothing to do with the entire rest of the comic. And it's like at volume 5, suddenly he's like, you know what? Let me go all the way back to when he was a baby and his mom gave birth when she was hanging from a tree and she was dead, and someone picked him up and sold him into slavery. And it's like, you're doing that at volume 5, not even chapter 5, but volume 5 of your comic. That's a huge mistake. But at the same time, Berserk is a great comic. So
Berserk works.
Sure.
But it's good to think of that ahead of time. Like if that guy, if the creator of Berserk thought of it ahead of time, he would be like, you know what, I could just dump the first 4 volumes entirely.
Right. And that's where these writing workshops and whatnot pay off. Because otherwise you have to just put the material out there.
Yeah, it's worth a consideration before you finish the material.
Yeah. Even if you stick with it, it's good to be able to consider why they're doing the things they'll keep doing.
Yeah, and even if you don't throw anything
away. Movies are under such pressure is because movies are expensive to make. And so you got people asking questions like, do we really need 30 pages of these guys just hanging out being kids? What the hell is the story about?
Yeah, the economy of storytelling needs to be so much tighter in movies. Like, and it's good to think of it like you're making a movie sometime, to be like, if this were a movie, would people be like bored at this part?
Right.
And it really depends.
If I'm making a movie, do I have to go to Epstein Island first?
So,
and the answer to that is yes.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I'm still kind of left with what is this about? And if it, I mean, so far, all indications seem to be that this is really kind of a sports story. So
overall, the later parts.
That's actually, it's a really good point and a really good question. Is this going to be non-competitive, friendly adventures, or is this going to get really serious?
That's sports.
Yeah.
I think it is going to get serious pretty fast. Like the next, I don't want to spoil too much of the next chapter, but they do get chased by the police, and at one point, and there was actually, I was going back and like rewriting that draft, because in one draft they get caught and like they have to answer their parents and everything, and it shows like you really fucked up, but then like another version was actually I was rewriting it to where they escape, and then I brought it into my writers group, and they were like, well, this isn't as good. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm going back to the drawing board.
Again, this sounds like it could be a sports thing. If they have to answer to their parents, and their parents are going to give them some homespun wisdom about how it's okay to steal from a crumbling skyscraper or something. I don't know.
But yeah, Cheyenne asks, like, look, a great question. Why do these guys even want to be raiders?
Yeah, that's.
Is there some other job that they're passing up? Like, it's the story is just stuck in this existential crisis, trying to find out what the hell it's about.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm at right now too, actually.
So and that was my question too, because I don't even see a crisis. I see dreams of what they want to do, but I don't see any obstacles other than like maybe finding the stuff they want or something.
Yeah, or alternatives.
I think what all of the comments are pointing to, and this is just going to be my, my feedback here, is I think what I want to understand is, what is the higher order question that you're trying to answer? What's what's the reason? What's the reason for all of this to exist?
Yeah, because this doesn't even have to be set in post-apocalypse. I was actually going to say this could have just been set. You could place this in Africa or something. It's like, no, that would get really scary really fast.
Yeah.
Well, I think being post-apocalyptic, I think it gives them like this scavenging thing to
It actually takes some of the edge off of the some of the drama, because nobody's going to be in these buildings, not unless you're going to have trogs and ghouls. You're gonna have some ghouls.
Because that's why I think of, like, listen, that's why I mentioned like Mortal Instruments, if anyone's familiar with that. It was like elder tech. It was the tech that basically our tech. That they were pulling up and scavenging because they were like valuable and stuff like that. So I mean, I got that feel from that. I think works as far as being post-apocalyptic, and it fits in this. But like they were saying too. I don't other than like a dream, I don't see the sense of urgency or why they want to do it or
well, I think that I did just remember, like, I think the main reason that I wanted to get into is that raiding represents freedom, this escape from their like dull, mundane lives.
Like pirates. Pirates are fun.
Pirates are fun.
Yeah, and if that's established, you want that to be established blatantly as soon as possible in your story.
So essentially, the kids are looking for escapism.
Yeah.
They also
But,
did
I
say
mean-
that it was. They seem to be implying that it was a big risk for them when he was trying to sell the USB drives. It's like we went through all this trouble to get these.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I would
that's
think
the
that would
thing,
need to be established in the
going
first
back
one.
to it. You know, like they had this whole fight with people over USB drives they discovered. Why? Why did they do that?
Yeah, they didn't even get paid that much for it, so
Yeah.
was it really worth it for them? Other than the freedom, the enjoyment, the thrill of the catch or whatever the hell.
The sheer fuck off all of it. But
Yeah.
the question is, I mean, is it theoretical that fight that they had could be, instead of it being against like real raiders or something, would just be against another group of kids, like rival kids, possibly?
Oh, that's a good point.
If you can do that, because if the story absolutely hinges on how it has to be another group of raiders that they were up against, then you have to keep that. But if it's against other kids, you could go with it.
Like, I actually really like that idea. I might have to work with that.
And I would actually, when you think about, like even in Harry Potter with the Quidditch and you think about sports, I would implement big name raider teams that everybody knows, heroes, people that
who does he look up? What's the name of the raider he looks up to? Like, what's his number?
Well, actually, I would still say MHA does it better than Harry Potter.
That's just the first thing came to mind. But
Harry Potter is a good example though, because of the Quidditch stuff. It's like it's the kids versus the other kids.
Well, in that though,
I want to say something. All right.
Okay.
I was watching, and I think, Thomas, I think you got me on this. You posted in our Discord. There's a link down there if anybody wants to hang out in the writers' Discord.
It's a wonderful Discord.
Yeah, it's just very nice. And we have little sections, and there was a section for building up, right? And you posted an interview with, I think,
John Milius. Isn't that how it's pronounced? He wrote Apocalypse Now, and he wrote the Conan the Barbarian movie.
And I was listening to him talk, and he was talking about, I forget, and I don't want to screw it up because I know there's a rivalry between USC and UCLA, but I think he was USC. But he was talking about he had a film teacher that if your formatting on the script wasn't perfect, he would throw it in the trash and not read it.
Oh yeah.
And
that's lame.
Yeah, and he's like, what?
For a reason too.
Yeah, he's like, people hated him, but you have to understand that that's the toughness you needed to be in this industry.
That's the passion you have to display. It's like, you better be caring enough to get the format exactly right as your teacher wants it if you're going to be showing anyone anything.
Right. And the other thing he would have the writers pitch the stories. And, and while they were going on, he'd go I think I'm going to make my appointment for lunch. And he's like, and I, one of my classmates would break out in tears, but he's like, look, this is, writing in LA. And I mean, on the movie is very competitive and writers are very cutthroat. And there's, does it need to be like that? Well, no. But at the same time, I think, Tony, you need to challenge yourself to find out why we need to invest in this story emotionally. What is it going to do for us? What are you going to do for us? And it can't just be, well, I don't know. I mean, even your character is going, well, I don't know. You should know.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
The funny thing is, first thing when Preston sent me the DM about coming on, the first thing I did was show him a screenshot of what I had. Is this the right format? It's like, before I go anywhere, is this the format?
Well, that's one of the toughest things about writing is hey, I got an idea for a story, but it's why does the story need to be told? It's something you should know before you're writing. Even if you only know it subconsciously, though, you don't have to know it consciously. If you can figure it out, you want to figure it out as soon as possible, but there has to be that reason. Even if you can't put it into words yet, there still has to be that reason.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was saying when we did a show a couple days ago. about a certain group of people making comics.
Some certain comic book creating people.
I was asking, why do you want to make this story? This is your ultimate story. We were reviewing specifically.
You're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, you're putting it like
Batman is a chicken, and Batman he's a big chicken.
Been saying that for a while.
Yeah, why are you putting like hundreds of thousands of dollars into your story to tell the story of why Batman had sex with a chicken and became this great hero who has sex with a chicken?
I listened to that review twice, by the way. I loved it.
Well, the question kind of answers itself, right? Because it's not about telling the story.
But the thing is, why?
Because, having sex with a chicken can be worth its own. That's its own justification.
It's
I understand that.
Reward.
I understand that, but it's like,
why do you want to make? Why is this the love of your life, your ultimate passion? You got one chance.
Your passion project.
To make it. Finally, you got your foot in the door. Give me everything you got. Show me what you can do.
Show me what you
got. Show me what you got.
I'm hearing Eminem playing in the background now.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason why we have why John Milius was talking about the kind of abusive USC film professor, or Eminem's talking about the struggle, the rap battle. It has to be a struggle to come up with and say, this is my art, and you should fucking care about it.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the greatest story, and no one is talking about this.
You're not at least have an ego and say, you're not appreciating my genius because you're a stupid asshole.
You're the hoi polloi. That's one of my favorite terms.
This novel and this whole idea was 15 years in the making for me. I threw it out so many times and then came back to it. And then
when you just can't stop coming back to it.
Right.
Yeah. And I've had that too with like so many ideas. I've had ideas where it's like I wrote the first chapter and the whole outline, and then I shelve it, and I'm like, if I come back to this, like if I come up with more ideas or something like that, if I come back to this, it's worthy of existing. And if I don't, then it's an idea that I can have rattling around in the back of my head. I can do whatever. I can rehash it into something else.
Story though is the one where he was like camping it. I think it was just after he got denied for going to Vietnam. He actually tried to sign up to go to Vietnam, and they turned him down because of his asthma or something. And so he went into the mountains of California, and he would just sleep against a tree. And he would just the first night he only brought his gun.
I was going to say all he had was this 44 Magnum and a tree.
His 45, and then the next night he doesn't bring the gun, just his knife. And then the next night after that, he puts the knife in the tree and sleeps without the knife. And it's like bear country. He actually says that he did this, and it was like he was building himself up. He was trying to make himself into a soldier despite not being able to go to Vietnam. And it's like, man, we don't have men like that anymore.
I was asking about the Discord because Vicky was telling her. I shot her a link because she's.
That's one thing about Discord links is that there's the non-expiring versions, but by default they expire after like a day or an hour or something.
She's in my Gray Order Discord, so I just shot her a link. She's an aspiring writer as well. And
anyone who has 10 pages of anything that they would like feedback on, that's what the show's for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking also, especially because of this latest story, Tony wrote it.
Yeah. And I was thinking, the Tomorrow Kids. In fact, his main character has a cameo. That's right. Literally #1.
You know what? That's actually a pretty good title because I've been writing a story that's very similar. It's about a group of people. They're not young, but it's basically like post-economic collapse America. And their only options are to become raider groups, essentially criminals, though. And there's no police force because it's a post-economic collapse. I can't even think of a title. And it's like
not the Yesterday Kids. That's taken.
Yeah, no, that's taken, and they're not kids.
I like how that setting alone has so many so much potential for tone and storytelling alone. Like even I always thought World War II. There's like a a billion stories being told going on right in the middle of that throughout several different countries and continents. And it's like, you could mine that for centuries.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah. I was reading that article about it was on Instapundit, and it was like the love for fantasy of post-apocalypse. Well, it was a whole discussion about how people really want to live in a post-apocalyptic society.
Yeah, because it's almost like the promise is actually greater, because now you can't get a tax fine from the city for growing too many tomatoes in your backyard anymore.
Yeah, stuff like that.
I do have a question. How long do you guys usually run for? Because I can actually go say good night to my girlfriend because she's going to bed soon.
We're fine wrapping it up right here.
Yeah.
I do want to recommend this one book. I picked it up a while ago. It's also a post-apocalyptic book. It's about this girl who's like the soldier. She's like all these mutants that like their bones are popping out and stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's called She Can Never Sleep.
Yes, I read that one.
Yeah, good one. Unfortunately, you can't find it anywhere anymore.
I have the paperback, so
I do too. You have one of two paperbacks, the rarest book in existence.
And the cover art was done by Clumsor.
Yeah, he's talking about the second novel that I wrote. It was back in like 2016. It's called. Right. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Oh, and I don't know if I said the name of my steampunk graphic novel. The name is actually the plot of the story. The name is Anima Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Soul in the Machine.
Yeah, that was okay. So, that was at the top of the script.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Double pun, or just single pun.
Very funny.
I was actually going to say, when that ship shows up to rescue the guy from the plank, that's very much a Deus Ex Machina. Oh, it's Anima Ex Machina. It's not the same.
Yeah. And the ship does have a soul in it too. It's like a sentient ship. So
there you go.
Now it's a double pun officially, even if
that could actually work in the story.
All right.
Okay. We're going.
All right.
I will see everybody next week. I saw somebody in the comments who seemed like they might want to present some pages. By the way, we look at anything that's in screenplay or stage play or comic format. No novels, though. Novels are different.
The novels are disgusting.
Hey, slow down. Speaking of which, mine is available on Amazon.
Nice plug.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and I will see everybody next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.